Hello everybody, this is part 3 of the Widgeon build. As you can see, both sides are now glued together. Seemed quite fiddly at the time, but now it's done. It's surprisingly rigid, and it's time to actually add the upper decking. Now, it suggests that that's done as a separate unit and then glued on, which I may still do. But one thing I have noticed is that these formers for the decking area are incorrect. If you measure them and then compare them to the actual cross section of the fuselage, they don't add up. So just a little lesson on double checking plans. There are often loads of inbuilt errors, particularly in the older ones. With the CAD and the computer designed plans, there's less excuse for that, but I suppose in the drafting process and reproduction of multiple times, errors began to creep in. So what I've actually done is I've measured across here, and it's just a tad over 4 centimeters. Now I have to allow for the decking material, which is 132, that goes around it. So I've started off by drawing out a couple of the formers for the front here. Now there are 4 of these that are the same size, and then they filter down in size. And what I propose to do is to actually measure each one and make them from the model rather than from the plans. I don't trust the plans now. I've got this is my basis. So there's the first one drawn out. I need to cut them out, and then I'll have a think about how I'm going to approach this next stage. Do I actually glue it on direct, or do I make it as a separate unit? Let's get these cut out first. Right, I've cut the parts out, and after a little bit of thought and deliberation, I've decided that I'm going to glue them straight on. I'm not going to mess around putting them onto a separate piece and then making it as a separate unit. That was the suggestion, but you don't always have to take what they tell you to do as gospel. And in this case, I'm going for a straight application. So these 1, 2, 3, 4 are all the same size, and that's the bit that makes up the cockpit. So let's start with this one and see it really is the only adhesive for this. I can't imagine trying to do this with anything else, simply because how do you pin wood as fine as this and as delicate as this? So there's the first one. That's at right angles, that's great. And once this skin is added over the top, although it's only 132, it will add enormously to the strength, I'm sure. Roy popped round yesterday, and I did own up to teasing about the size of his hands, but he's assured me that he'll manage without crushing the model, which is always a good thing. This is the final one that makes up the cabin area. Now, the front nose part does kick in. It has to be pulled in. I'm not exactly sure where the cut should be, so I've got a feeling it might actually be along this this angle here. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll see. I'll have to have another think about it. Now, these didn't take long to lose one of the parts. There's a smaller one. Now, I'm only going to tack these lightly in place because I'm not altogether certain that I'm going to get a good run. So I'll simply tack them tack them down. One hit will do. And then see if the rule goes smoothly down. If it doesn't, it's not a major job to take them back off. That's the first one. Just glue one end. And if I'm happy with them, I'll glue the whole thing in place. Because remember, these aren't from the plan. Plan just, they weren't wide enough. Right, okay, let's try the rule. Down. Yeah, it's going to work. Right, so I'm happy with that. I'll square them up now and glue them in place. These applicators are a godsend. They make life so much easier when it comes to actually manipulating the glue. How have I managed to do that? I'm nowhere near it. Twist to get it off, there you go. I think this CA is actually being used in surgery. So effective at gluing flesh. Right, there we go. Now, I'll have to have a think on this. I think the brake needs to go there to pull in the nose, and then that also will become the mounting block for the motor. There we go. Starting to take shape. As I hope you can see here, I have a curling piece of 132. That's for the first section that's going to contain the cockpits. I've simply dampened one side. It won't need steaming. It's going to curl around of its own accord. And what I'll do is I'll zap it on here and then wrap it and then cut. So what I'm going to do is glue along this edge. I'm not going to attempt to glue it to size, or cut it to size rather. I'll wrap, then cut. And the cockpits themselves will be released and cut out after everything's been glued in place. You don't get any distortion that way. If you try to cut them out beforehand, you can get a little bit of twisting and distortion of the wood. That's going to wrap round beautifully. I'm really pleased with that. And I'll simply mark on the position. And double check. Yeah, that's going to glue nicely. I'll cut that with a ruler now. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to glue the rest of it from the inside, which I can. Pulling it into position. And then I'll trim that off. once it's all in place. So let's trim that now. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice I've broken that. Well, that's where the hatch is going to go anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. It's a little bit too ham-fisted. I'm going to glue that here now. It is really delicate. Here's me winding Roy up saying, you're going to make a mess of this, it's going to break in your hands. I've just put my thumb through it. But there's going to be a hatch in there for the, need to take some more, to access the radio gear and the hatch for the battery. Remember, this is going to be a radio control electric model. Exciting stuff, eh, folks? Trim a little bit more off here. It's Missy the cat just coming in to be a nuisance at just the wrong time. There you go. Quite pleased with that. A little bit of glue on the inside. Now, the next part will be one taper, and then it'll be a taper in here. I'm going to break it along this line here and bring it in, and that's the point at which the engine will be mounted. There we go, first part done. So the decking's going in place. First part's obviously been done, and I've got a decent fit on this side. This has been wetted, soaked, and I'm slowly taking it around, gluing it a bit at a time and trimming as I go. So it's slowly catches monkey, and I've got a sharp blade here and I'm trimming. I say a sharp blade, I might need to even change this because I've used it for a little bit. And I'm trimming this so I can get a nice neat join along here as I roll it round. It's the only way I can really think to do it, and I think it's the way to go. So basically I'm taking it round a little at a time, and because I've got access from this side I'm able to glue it as I go. So that's okay up to now, happy with that. That needs cutting and trimming, so I'll change this blade and I'll carry on with this process. Well, we've jumped ahead a little bit. A slight correction on the technique I used. I need to explain. I actually started forming it round from one side to get a nice edge, but that was a mistake, and the reason was, as I was turning it over, it imparted quite a strain in the fuselage. You know, it is, after all, only 1/16 square, maybe a tad over that. So it was twisting the fuselage, and I had to stop very quickly. And what I did, and the technique I've now realised I should have adopted, you glue the centre first and then wrap it round. And that does mean you have to carefully trim to get it to match into the sides. But that way you don't impart any undue strain on the fuselage. So you can see that I haven't cut out the cockpits yet. It's easier to do that afterwards. This piece here should have gone to there before I took it down, but it's going to blend in. Once it's got a sand, it'll be fine. I've made a little block for the front. That'll probably be kept in place with magnets. And by taking the hatch off here, I think Roy will be able to get a battery in, if I find something to point with, in through here, and it's well away from the cabin structure and the wings, so it'll make installation of the battery easy. I'll make a sort of runner for the battery to run down. If Roy brings me the battery that he has for this, I think I'll make a little box that it'll slip into so it can't move. It still needs the nose block carving round. That's just a little bit of fettling. But there you go. I'll call that part of the build done. Next time I'll have the nose block carved out. That's the one that was part of the rubber power. No good, that. I'll get that done. We'll call this video done. That's number 3, I believe. Next time we'll cut out the apertures for the cockpits, and then we'll start thinking about the cabins. And I think then we'll be ready to look at repairing these wings, because I would like to keep some of Roy's father's build and incorporate it into the model. Otherwise it just becomes a build by myself, and that's not the point of the exercise. So I hope you found that useful. If you have, well, the main thing is the balsa easily bends if you soak one side. If you really need to get it around there, steam is even more helpful. I would advise that if you're doing something as delicate as this, that you wrap it from the centre out rather than try to form it in one continual loop. But anyway, there we go, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up.